catch up if he comes. Good morning, everyone. This is the May 2026 Finance and Audit Committee meeting for La Pala Electric Association. Convening the meeting with a call to order, and let's look at the agenda. We have an agenda up there, and maybe anyone wants to make a motion to approve, and then if there's any changes, we can accommodate.
So I'll move to approve it.
Second.
Okay. Monica, did you have a suggestion?
Yes, I did. I'd like to suggest to move the audit presentation up to before the March financial presentation, because our auditor is online right now.
Okay, sounds like a good idea. Good way to save a few bucks, maybe.
Does Woody have the meter running? That's right.
Okay, so with that change, any other changes or discussion? All right, so committee members, all in favor of that, just raise your hand and say aye.
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 That is unanimous, so we'll make that change. Just another note that one of the committee members, Dusty, is absent at the moment. Maybe he'll join us later. The next would be the approval of the meeting minutes. A motion to approve those would be helpful.
So moved.
Second.
Kohler with a second by David. Thank you. Any changes, questions, comments on the minutes? All right, so all in favor of approving those minutes, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. So that's unanimous. And let's move into audit presentation, discussion, and discussion of resolution 2026-08, allocation of patronage capital. Is there anyone who has questions on the audit, or Woody, do you have anything you want to present?
I don't have anything to present unless you want me to go through the board presentation that I did at the prior meeting. I can certainly do that again. But just entertaining any questions from the committee as it relates to the audit. Because I understand you didn't get a copy of the audit in advance of the meeting. And so now that y'all have had a chance to review the audit, are there any questions related to it that I can answer?
Yeah, let's just stick with that. I don't think we need the full presentation. Kohler, go ahead.
Yeah, so on page 15 of the audit, it has under deferred credits note number 8, the excess self-insured medical, and it was up in 2025 compared to 2024. But I thought we had a presentation in the middle of the year that said that the self-insurance thing was in a little bit of a bind. Is this, I mean, I can't see the years before that, but is this okay where it is right now as far as the figures on that? And are we in pretty good shape with that?
Yeah, as far as you're talking about the deferral that has been set aside related to the self-insurance. So you have 1.4 million in deferral to cover future cost. And so, that's what has increased by almost $300,000 from last year. And so you've actually added to that this year. And so I think that's, whatever the board's desire is as far as having deferring revenue to cover that cost, I think is more of a question of, how's your claim experience been and things of that sort to know if the $1.4 million that's been set aside is enough or not.
Okay, but it doesn't raise any red flags as far as the audit goes.
No, no red
Correct,
flags
correct.
as part of the audit. That's right. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Questions? I had one question having to do with Pagosa Springs IRU promissory. Is that um is that we carry the promissory note, or does Town of Pagosa? Are we paying them? It wasn't clear to me who's paying whom here. Okay, so
Yeah. In this case, you are paying them.
okay. And that's a maturity of 2055. Is the number for 2025 the payment made in that year?
The number that you see on the chart is the outstanding liability that will be paid back through the year 2025. I mean, 2055, excuse me. So
I'm
a
looking at
very,
page 12, lines of credit, long-term debt, right? The value
yes,
for 2025, the 131, is that's the outstanding liability of this?
that's correct. That's the total liability that you will pay back annually through 2055. So
Right,
that's not a 1 year payment. That's the entire liability that's still owed at the December 31st, 2025.
fairly de minimis, actually, if we're talking.
Yes, that's correct. That's right.
And that's for broadband? Is that what that is? A broadband easement or no?
I don't remember exactly what that was for.
Yeah.
Monica, can you help me on that?
That's the, I guess, kind of the land for the Trujillo substation.
Okay, so it's a land lease essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tim, the town of Pagosa, as you may remember, we took a bunch of extra time because they preferred this treatment as opposed to what we normally do, which is a single one-time payment. And so they asked for it to be, I think it comes out to $8,000 a year, if I remember correctly. So yeah,
Okay.
you're right, pretty de minimis, but this was Pagosa's preference, and so we changed it around and structured it in that way.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was, like I said, a payment per year or overall.
Yeah.
That's pretty small. Um, Anyone else have questions? Excuse me. I have one other. This is page, excuse me, page 14. And I don't know whether this is that relevant or not, but it talks about the power supply, and it mentions within this, for this year, that as of December 31st, under power supply, the second sentence, the contract with Tri-State was set to expire on December 31st, 2050. It just seems inaccurate to me, but maybe that's not the case. It also then mentions that as a contract, and down below it says we will withdraw membership. And I think that's a bit of a mix of terms that perhaps mean the same thing. Aren't we also leaving that contract, not just the membership? So I don't know. It just seems, I mean, this is like I look at this as also a historical document, right? We want to go back a few years and understand what the auditor said about something. It just seems inaccurate to mix membership with contract and then mention the contract expires 20, 2050. We are actually withdrawing as of, well, April 1st, right? So maybe there's a reason audit wise that wording is that way, but anyway, maybe it's not a big deal either.
Yeah, I'd say from the audit perspective, there's no rhyme or reason as to the wording that could have been included here. It's no requirement for me. other than I think the intent was to, I guess to say that the original contract was set to expire um, in 2050, but then immediately after that, let the reader know that, hey, we do have an intent to withdraw, uh, to let them know that, and then in March of 2025, we made a decision as far as discounting capital credits and things of that sort. Um, so no, it's not a play on words or anything from an audit perspective. At the end of the day, what my job is to do is what management discloses in these financial statements is it misleading or anything like that? And in our opinion, it wasn't misleading anybody or anything like that. And so this is certainly not, may not stand a legal review, so to speak. But that's not the intent of this document necessarily.
Okay, that's a good clarification because that kind of is the question that it was leading me to is like, does somebody in a legal proceeding point to the auditor's statement and say, see, you didn't have this right or something like that? But I guess that's more of a Graham question than it is a Woody. So,
That's right. Yes.
all right. Thank you for that clarification. Sorry if I'm being
Mhm.
pedantic here, but
No problem.
and
Tim, I
then
do want to add, Graham did review this section and helped with some language, and so
okay,
at
so it's
least under this,
auditor and attorney blessed, I guess. Huh?
yes, yeah, he
Okay,
did review it.
that's good enough for me, I guess. and 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 interim CFO blessed as well. So we got them all. Um, and then one last question, and I think somewhere in here, and I didn't highlight it. Um, do we not get a retirement in 2025 from Tri-State? Do we not get a
You
retirement?
were you were allocated capital credit allocation from Tri-State. I think it was $1.8 million is what they allocated to La Plata in 2025. So yes, you did get an allocation.
But not a retirement. There was no payment in 2025 of previous allocation.
I believe that's right. That there was no cash payment.
All right. For some reason, I thought there was. Maybe that was no. There was nothing at the beginning of the year of 2025, Monica. That
Um, Don't believe so. I was just gonna double check that. No, we did not receive any retirement in 2025. We only received allocation.
and okay, so it's been a year without receiving that. All right. Just wanted to clarify that. I thought there had been, but I guess not. All right. Anybody else? Any other questions on the audit? Very clean, um, very good audit from my report from my perspective, and I think kudos to the finance and all the other people in LPA staff who participate to make this, you know, make sure our financials are in line, healthy, and by the book. So I congratulate and thank you all for that. All right, that's it, I think. Woody, you can have the rest of the morning to finish your coffee or whatever. I appreciate you coming and answering questions.
Absolutely. Glad to do it. Y'all have a good rest of your meeting.
Thanks,
Thank
Woody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Woody.
All
Matt.
right.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
So Tim, do we need to take a vote for a recommendation to the board to accept this?
I don't think we need to, I mean, I don't think there's a need for us to make recommendation on the audit per se. We could if the committee feels that's important, but I think what we should do is look at resolution 2026-08, which is the allocation of patronage capital. And we do want to make a recommendation one way or another on that. But let me ask Monica and Chris if you feel a recommendation to accept the audit is in order.
So yeah, Tim, we did take a look back at this, and the precedent is for the fact to make that recommendation. So yeah, would welcome that if the committee is comfortable doing so. And then also, as you say, need a recommendation on resolution 08.
Okay, so yeah, having not been in the last board meeting, I thought maybe that would already have been done by the board, but I guess not. So, all right, well, Kohler, feel free to make a motion
I'll make the motion, recommend this to the board.
that
The audit.
and the language would be accept the audit.
Yes, accept the
Okay.
audit.
All right. Any second?
Second the recommendation from Kohler.
Okay. So second to recommend to the board in the meeting that they accept the audit as presented. And any further discussion? All right, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. So that's unanimous. Okay. Thank you for that, Kohler.
Yeah.
And thanks for the clarification, Chris and Monica. Let's look at 2026-08. I think it's at the bottom of the packet, if I recall correctly. There we go. So essentially we would be recommending that the board adopt resolution 2026-08. Monica, do you want to make any comment about what's in this and what that recommendation means or represents?
Sure. So this resolution 2026-08 allocation of patronage capital is to allocate our operating margins for year in 2025 to the membership. It breaks out the operating margins of the 7,073,874.53 and the non-operating portion of 4,544,238.12. And a portion of that does include the tri-state generation allocation of the 1.7.
Questions, anyone?
Yeah, maybe so. So on those, the allocations from tri-state, is that affected by us using the capital credits for our CTP? This is separate?
Yeah. We
Okay.
took retirement, not allocation. So
Okay.
So historically, we've allocated the portion we've allocated the margins attributed to the tri-state allocation into kind of their own bucket. And then the other non-tri-state margins to the general membership. But both allocations do go back to the membership.
Okay, thank you.
and just to clarify, the 1.752 million from Tri-State is within the non-operating margin. Is that correct? It's
Yes.
included in there. It's not an additional.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And between the operating and non-operating margins, is that a sum that we're allocating? Is it 7 plus 4, 5?
Do the math. So the the operating margins is this 7 million, and then the non-operating margins is the 4.5 less the 1.7. That'll be allocated for the tri-state G&T.
Okay,
So it's
so, but in total,
overall.
it's 11.5 roughly. That's being allocated, right?
That's yes, of the portion that's not the G&T.
Portion that's not what?
The G&T, the tri-state G&T allocation.
Right, less that, which goes into a different bucket, right?
Yes.
But in fact, it's 11.5 in total that's being allocated, part of it into a different bucket.
All right, I'm doing the math real quick. Just make sure I give you the correct information.
Okay.
So a total of 9.8 million is allocated from operating and non-operating margins. And then an additional 1.7 million is allocated from the tri-state generation allocation. The two total up to the total operating margin of 11.6.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you very much. That's a lot. Good for the employee or for the members when we pay that out in the next 20 years.
And I did just realize, I don't know, and I'll make sure it gets updated, the dates get updated on the resolution. I don't know if the version you're looking at, if it's still referencing April. So I'll make sure that that reflects the main date.
Yeah, it says April 15th, so it should be May 20th, right?
Yeah, we'll get that
make sure
updated.
that gets updated.
Good catch. And let me ask one last question here. In the past, there's a the method of allocation for the G&T versus the members. There's a difference in that allocation having to do with one is related somehow to kilowatt hours or megawatt hours or something. And then the other one is something to do financially. I can't remember. Is that a separate resolution that we do at some point? How, Dan, you seem to be following me there in my disjointed explanations.
Yeah, we have and the allocation method of the G&T capital credit is a little different than the allocation of the LPEA's distribution margins. One's, and I forget which is, I'd have to go look at I think we have it writing somewhere. One's based on revenue, one's based on kilowatt hours. If I'm correct there. It may be in the bylaws, I can't remember.
I think it is in the bylaws, actually.
Yeah.
So it seemed to me in the past we passed something as a board, or maybe not. Maybe it's because it's in the bylaws. In any event, I'm not sure if something's needed additional to this for that or not, but maybe not. Maybe that's also a grand question. So I just want to make sure we don't have to come back and do something.
Yeah, Tim, I will double check with Graham, but we did talk about this before we drafted the resolution or before he drafted the resolution, and we think this covers it. And but I am glad we're double checking here, but I think we've covered that with the drafting.
Okay. All right.
I will add that the allocation and retirement are two different types of motions. And so this resolution right here is to allocate margins in the year in 2025. And will we be
Okay.
bringing to the board in future months to talk about retirements and full
Right.
the general membership,
That's
capital
another,
credits and G&T.
that's another good clarification. Yes, thank you. But yeah, my question was about allocation, I think. So, okay, I'll assume this covers the right way to allocate based on our bylaws, I think. So, okay, so we need a motion to recommend to the board that it adopt resolution 2026-08 and the allocation so described.
So moved. So
Second.
moved.
And second, Kohler, so moved.
All right, any discussion, further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous again. It's a friendly committee this morning. Okay, back to the schedule. Any questions or on the actuals from March? Monica, were there any adjustments or changes since March?
There were not.
Okay. So anyone have further questions having had more time to review? Doesn't look like it. So let's move on to April financials, review of preliminary financials, and I'll leave that to Monica.
Go ahead and share my screen. Great. We'll see financials up on the screen.
Make it a little bigger.
So we can.
Oh, there we're getting there.
Right. So April marked the start of our new journey of power purchase independence. With that came new information gathering and reporting processes. Instead of having a single source to pull all of our energy purchases and expenses from, we now have 11 different sources to gather that information. Along with this journey, there is a change, or there will be a change in the timing of finalized information, with potential of adjustments going out 120 days. And therefore, we will be looking at preliminary results until that month's settlement is complete. And so that is why these financials have been marked as draft preliminary. So with that being said, let's look at our performance for the month. LPEA reported a negative operating margin of 100,000 in April compared to a negative budgeted margin of 915,000, which resulted in a positive budget variance of 81,000. Our gross margins were 2% or 111,000 better than budget. Our controllable expenses were 17% or 547 under budget, and other expenses were 6% or 157,000 under budget. Revenue remains slightly under budget, but this month's variance was actually not as large as it's been the last couple of months. Residential continued to be down slightly. It was under 2%. Industrial sales were down 12%, but we saw an uptick in commercial revenue, resulting in 4% revenue being higher than budget. This lower than expected revenue is impacting our year-to-date margins as a percent of revenue. So that key performance metric is coming in at 2.3%. It's also affecting our O-tier ratio, which measures the cooperative's ability to generate enough earnings to cover long-term interest. That ratio is currently sitting at 1.37. I do anticipate in the future months that we will be able to get those metrics up back into the board's target. As I mentioned, our cost of power is an estimate right now, but it is currently 8% or 322,000 under budget. Our line loss is a little low for this month, coming in at 1.7, which does indicate that there may be some slight adjustments in the future months. We saw savings throughout all of our O&M expenses. The largest savings being recognized in our transmission expense. The transmission bill from Tri-State, because of the way the SPP generates those bills, that transmission bill will not be available for April until June. And so that expense is an estimate right now, and it's being estimated based on LPEA's gross peak load. This expense is being estimated lower than budget and is being further offset by our transmission credit that we received with the contract termination. We also are continuing to see payroll savings throughout all of the different line categories. And then we also realized some savings in legal and outside consulting in April. Jumping down into the other expense section, our depreciation and amortization expense. The amortization of our new regulatory asset was actually over budgeted, and so we will be seeing a continued savings in that line through the remainder of the year. The savings that we'll be realizing in the depreciation line will be offset by the increased costs in our interest and long-term debt, which was actually forecasted lower than what we're actually seeing. And then finally, dropping down to the non-operating margins. The non-operating margins other category, we did budget for the sale of some certain assets, and so that has been postponed into the future. I wanted to jump down to the balance sheet.
Hey, Monica, real quick, could you just repeat what that last part you were talking about on the non-operating margins? I'm sorry, I missed what you said about the non-operating margins other. Sorry.
Sure. But... It's okay. So we had budgeted the sale of some certain assets, and so that sale is being postponed into the future. And so that's where you're seeing that big or that large actual to budget variance.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, and so moving on to the balance sheet. Although our operating liquidity target was slightly below the board's goal, cash compared to this time last year did see a significant increase of about 3.8 million. And our cash for this month was impacted due to our quarterly scheduled debt payments. Some other highlights that I wanted to point out on the balance sheet. We recorded the assets that we acquired from Tri-State. And so we'll see that in our growth in our total utility plant. We also recorded the contract termination payment asset under regulatory assets.
So that's showing up right there. And then we also recorded the transmission credit under deferred debts and the current portion of those credits to receive under prepayments. And then finally, we did retire the tri-state patronage investment. So you'll see that decrease on this line right here under investment in patronage capital. That's all I have for you. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
I do, if you don't mind, Tim.
No, go ahead.
I'm still trying to, and of course, it's new. It probably might take a couple months. So a couple questions, and that is on that transmission credit. You were just saying that's reflected on the balance sheet under prepayments. Is that correct?
It's split between other deferred debits and then the current portion, so the 12 months of credits under the prepayments.
Okay, and then that interest we receive on that, is that kind of trued up on a monthly basis, or is that an annual basis that they, or maybe not even the interest, the actual amount of credit or the amount that we get from that deposit? So I think Dan mentioned that we will always, or pretty much always, use what will be over what's actually credited to us. Is that correct? I'm just kind of confused on how to figure this out going forward, for what the transmission actually is costing us.
Sure, absolutely. So let me see if I can break this down. So we received 93 million essentially in transmission credits to be used over 40 years. And so that equates to that equates to 194,500 to be used as a credit each month. And then Tri-State, we are earning interest based on the average prime rate over the 3 months. And so that interest is being earned on a monthly basis and is being calculated based on our remaining balance of that credit. And so Tri-State, when they get the when we receive the transmission bill from SPP, they'll take that full amount and apply first that amortized amount of the 194,000, and then apply any of the interest that we earned that month against that bill. And then we'll owe, if there is a balance, we will owe that. And so the way it's presented on our financials, we are recording the full transmission expense and then offsetting that expense by the interest that we are earning on that transmission credit.
So that offset would be on the balance sheet, right?
The offset, it's kind of a two-part transaction. So the 194,000 is being reduced on the balance sheet, and the interest is being reported on the statement of operations. It is reducing our overall interest expense.
Okay. It's going to take me a few months, but thank you. So the other question, you mentioned that we won't get the bill from SPP for April until June. And is that going to be the same going forward? So our actual financials will not really be finalized for several months instead of just the next month. Is that correct?
That's for transmission, just to make sure we get billed for power and transmission. My understanding, Monica, is that longer delay has to do with the transmission clearing. Is that correct?
It's two parts. The transmission expense is an absolute estimate, and so we will not have that figure until really almost 2 months after the month closes. And then for the cost of power or energy that we're purchasing, there is possibility of those numbers adjusting as well. SPP has resettlements or restatements at 53 days after the operating close, and then 120 days. And so we could potentially be seeing adjustments. What is that? 4 months after the month closes.
Is there a,
Thank you.
did that help your understanding? So I think your statement about Kohler about these being preliminary for perhaps 3 months before they're finally finalized is accurate at this point, and that seems like that will be the method and the way things go for the future. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Monica.
That is correct. And so I plan to me or the next CFO come to the FAC on a monthly basis, and we can summarize if any changes have come to light between now and the next meeting. So we'll keep you apprised to any adjustments on that month-to-month basis. So, but yes, your cost of power line and then that transmission expense line, those are the two major categories on our statement of operations that have potential to change over a 4 month period.
So that the question I have is there a point at past which those adjustments can no longer be made by SPP?
120 days.
120 days is the maximum. So 4 months, essentially. Right? 3 months. No, 4 months. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay. So okay. So that's the window. And then I know this is early. This is the first month, right? It's hard to give kind of any definitive statement, but maybe you could give us a feel for what you believe might be the magnitude of these adjustments.
I can address that question first, and then maybe Dan can chime in as well. So, I mean, as far as we feel like the transmission expense is a good start on the estimate based off of our load, but there is some question on how SPP is going to calculate that. And so there is some possible liability on that line. But I think the cost of power, a good sanity check there is looking at our line losses. And so that's why, I addressed right there on our line losses typically are anywhere between 3 and 4.5%. And so when they're showing at 1.7%, that may indicate that there may be some additional true ups on some additional kilowatts being built in the future.
So that would be an upward adjustment in terms of cost.
Correct. There would be an additional cost.
Right. So if it's too low, likely if it gets back to 3 or 4% or whatever the number is, that's an increase in cost of power. Okay.
Yeah, and Monica, I think you hit the nail on the head there. The losses are a great sanity check to look at. The transmission expense is going to have a question mark after it until we get this first bill. We're estimating it based on our peak load. And my understanding was always they would base it over a rolling 12 months, but they don't have any historical data to do a rolling 12 months at this point. So after we see a couple of months come through, it's like this first month, they probably just got 1 month to bill on. So we're probably pretty close. We're assuming 105 megawatts of peak demand that we're going to get billed for. That's our absolute peak. It's actually going to be billed based on what our peak was at the time the zone peaked. We don't know what that is yet, but it'll be between 100 and 105. So that's not going to move a whole lot on the transmission bill. What could move it more is if, as they transition to what I think will be a 12-month rolling window, then our shoulder months will get higher and our peak months will get lower. And right now we may have low transmission bills during the shoulder months, higher transmission bills during the winter months. We would prefer that steady level. That makes better utilization of our transmission credit, because during the low months, we may not be using all of our transmission credit. So I think it's going to take some time to work out. We'll have a better feel on how that all gets billed once that bill comes in. We see their methodology clearly in front of us. But I don't think there's going to be great swings. Now, if Monica came back and said our losses were minus 10% or a positive 30%, I'd be like, wow, we've got some big adjustments coming our way. But we've got a pretty tight window there.
Tiny.
Okay. So
Yeah,
magnitude in the low single digits percentage wise.
Yeah, Tim, and just to reinforce that, we think our estimates are very close. I think what we're going to see is kind of those true ups will be kind of that 1% to 2% type of thing, is our expectation. So we just want to make sure the FAC is understanding that the final is 120 days, but they're relatively minor adjustments, and we'll be tightening this up as we get more experience as well.
Kohler, you have a question?
Yeah, so Dan, you just mentioned there might be a couple months where we're less than the transmission credit. So if I understand it right, if we don't use it, we lose it. So for that month. So if that's the case, again, how is that reflected unbundled basically in the financials? Or does that just kind of show up in the grand totals of the transmission expense?
So maybe your question, what happens to that prepayment that was there if we don't utilize it all?
Yeah.
Monica,
we lose it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're not, so that
go ahead.
the interest that we're earning is calculated on a month-to-month basis. And so we have not recorded any kind of a prepaid asset related to that interest. The only thing that's recorded on the balance sheet is the amortization of that 93 million, that 93 million being amortized over the 40 years. And so the likelihood of our transmission expense being less than 194,000 probably isn't likely. And so we wouldn't be forfeiting any of that portion. It would be a forfeit of the interest that we're earning on the credit. And there's nowhere really to reflect that. It would just, we wouldn't be reporting a loss necessarily. It's interest that's available to us in that month to be applied towards a credit.
Okay. It's going to take me some time, but thank you.
So if I could sum up what I just heard a little bit, is the transmission credit being amortized over the 40 years, we get a fixed amount each month. You indicated 194K, right? So the likelihood, April, a low power usage month here we're looking at, is 401 $100,000, right? So the idea that we would have transmission expense less than 194 is unlikely, right, Monica? So that credit will be utilized. The question is, which I didn't quite follow, is somehow there's a potential of lower interest payment on that balance in low usage months. Maybe that would be a little helpful to give a further explanation on, or correct me if my understanding there is incorrect.
And my spreadsheet has some confidential information, so when we go into executive session, I could maybe pull that up.
Okay.
Maybe, being able to see the numbers on the screen, may be able to help paint a clearer picture on how some of that amortization of the credit and the interest is going to be accounted for on some basis.
Okay.
Good. That'd be great.
Thank you. But the good news is it's unlikely we will lose the value of the credit on a month-to-month basis, unless we generated everything in La Plata County. All right. Other questions on or other pieces you want to present on April financials?
No other information that I need to highlight, or that I feel that I need to highlight. So if there's not any other questions, I think we can move on.
No, I think for me to have any more meaningful questions, I would need to look at the package of preliminary financials. So maybe we will have some questions and some opportunity to explain this at the board meeting, because I think the rest of the board members will want to know and understand a little bit what we're gaining knowledge about through this new process. So, framed in, this is all new. It's new for SPP and for us. And there's a lot, we're on a steep learning curve. So I think grace in terms of relying on these numbers at this point is in order, right? As we learn and go through that curve, which probably will continue through most of this year. Good news is cost, from what I can see here, if I could sum, is cost of power is down significantly against budget and of course the year before, which provides a basis for improved margins through the rest of the year if this were to continue. Is that fair?
That is correct.
So that's really good news.
Mm-hmm.
We're realizing the savings that we had anticipated, and perhaps better than we anticipated. So good job, Dan, on your negotiation.
Right there is a snapshot of a rolling 12 months of our cost of power, so you can also see right there.
Wow.
But you're muted, Tim. There we
All
go.
right. Yep, I just realized. Thank you. So yeah, that's good news. And if there's any other questions, otherwise, Monica, are these in the Google Docs folder yet or not?
They are, yes.
Okay, I checked yesterday. I didn't see them, but
I
you must
put
have
them in
worked overnight.
yesterday afternoon.
Okay, all right. I'll look for them then. Anyone else? All right, let's move on.
Maybe just a quick comment.
Sure.
Just a quick comment, because I think some of the members have requested to see the financials. Is that correct? Do we share these financials with the members upon that request?
Oh, yeah, we have several different formats that members can request. So yeah, there's yeah, these are available in different forms. We've got our annual version, our audited financials available. Are you asking if this sheet on the screen right now is available?
No, what my thought is that we need to make sure that people that do request that information understand that it's not, this is a draft for possibly another 4 months. That we shouldn't really share that specific item until that 4 months is over, right?
Yeah, and that's why I think sharing our annual audited books is the ideal way to share information, and that's we've had requests for that and send that directly to members.
Fully agree. Okay, thank you.
And my understanding is that this is a board document and it is preliminary information and it is not readily shared without
That's
a vote of the board. And, you know, someone can see it here if they need to, probably could take a screenshot if they had, if you know, so, but it is not designed for public consumption at this point. That's
and with the caveat, Kohler, that you just mentioned, which is that we are expecting adjustments. These are April preliminary anyway, and now we've got the added adjustments that we're going to receive from SPP up to 120 days. So, yeah, I think that's exactly right. That you need to make sure folks understand that, you know, that's how that's the situation we're in. We're bringing that information to this committee, to the board, but that until the books are finalized, you know, they're not final. So, not to have a tautology.
So will that delay our audit then next year? Will they have to wait for that period of time to make sure that the figures are correct?
Yeah, potentially it could add a little bit more to that timeline. Yeah, we'll know kind of what those adjustments look like by the time we get to that stage. But that's, yeah, potentially it could add some time to that overall work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, getting back to everything's kind of changing, into Kohler's comment. I agree with Kohler, probably take 2 or 3 months to get a grasp of this, but then we're running right into budget, and we'll have a few, depending on elections, maybe new board of directors. Just to put it out there, not wanting an answer right now, but there might be a financial committee of a whole just to go over what has changed and how SPP, the 120 days, the transmission credits, etc., apply, and we get a better grasp of where our books are at before we go into budget. Because once you go into budget, then you're trying to, I think you're kind of late on bringing everybody up to speed as far as the changes. So just throwing that out there for consideration.
Yeah, David, I think that's a good point. Again, we are expecting relatively minor adjustments, 1% to 2% types of things. You know, we'll obviously test that assumption over the next several months. But I think, you know, we're going to have very good information. It's never perfect for the budget, right, but I think we'll still have good information to do that process. But yeah, I think it's just a caveat of we've got kind of an extended period where we could see some adjustments, and just want to make sure the board's aware of that. And
well, it's not just the adjustments, Chris. It's also the positive impact to the way we're looking at our books and our assets, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So the 120 days doesn't bother me because it's 1% to 2%. What it is there's a lot of things that you need to, just like Monica said, there's a sheet that shows how we're amortizing that we'll see in executive session, but that's a huge impact to the transmission and how the interest goes, etc. All this is positive. What I'm trying to say is if we can get the positive to the board, get this out of the way so nobody's hung up on how the books have changed before we get to budget. Because I hate to have both of them. I'd hate to have the confusion of the board at budget time with these, it's nuances. I'll put
Yeah.
it that way.
Yeah.
But
And
like, but I agree with Kohler. It's going to take me 2 to 3 months or more to get the nuances unless I can get it and explain in a 2 or 3 hour. Here it is training, board training on how our looks at. And again, I'm not saying we need to make a decision here or anything. I'm kind of putting it out there as something to think about.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good suggestion, and we could look at scheduling something over the summer that after we get a few months under our belt, we
Correct.
can bring it back to the board and say, hey, here, just want to compare and contrast kind of how we saw the information in 2025 versus what it looks like in 2026. So that's a great suggestion.
Correct.
But I think, again, the headline here is the top right-hand corner of what's on the screen, which is we're seeing, as we expected, significant reductions in our cost of power.
Yes.
And that's, that's the takeaway for me as we get this first month under our belt.
And I agree, it'd be a few months down the road, but
Yeah.
not to pound a dead horse, a couple past 2 or 3 budget cycles that I've been on, things have come up at the last minute and it's too late. And so if there's confusion and then somebody wants to add something, let's look at this, maybe we can head it off in a cow up front, is all I'm saying.
Yep. Great suggestion.
Shall we move to the Form 7?
Sounds good.
So, Monica, maybe you could pull that up on the screen, perhaps. There we go. Make it a little bigger. Thank you for us with the old eyes.
Big enough.
Older. It's okay for me. How about everyone else? I also have it on my screen, I guess, now too, but it's helpful, I think, especially if you're on a video later.
So I don't know if historically the FAC has seen this Form 7. This Form 7 is an annual report, a standardized annual report that we are required to file with our lender, CFC. This presents financial results, our utility operations, plant and debit information. Like I said, it's required by our lenders, and they use this information along with information from all the other cooperatives to put together that key ratio trend analysis report, or the KTRAs. And that report is, I think, over 150 different ratios, and it lets us compare ourselves to different utilities across the nation and the state, consumer size, and things like that. So the KRTAs are a great tool, and it is produced based off of this annual report. So I can just go kind of section by section and give you a couple different highlights.
Let me ask one question here real quick.
Sure.
So this is required by the lender, and is the purpose that the lender has for this strictly KRTA usage?
It's also to make sure we're meeting our covenances and looking at our financial performance. And so they're using our information and utilizing those different ratios to.
And so this is the only way they get this information from us is through this form, rather than perhaps utilizing our audit.
We submit our audit as well. So that's
And this-
another required document.
And this information is derived from our audited information
Correct. Yes.
directly. Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify purpose and source. So thank you.
Great.
Okay, go ahead. I don't mean to step on your toes.
That's okay. So these first couple sections are the financials. They tie to our audited financials that we reviewed last month that Woody spoke on a little bit this morning. So statement of operations, our balance sheet. And then this next section, Part E, gives us a kind of deeper dive into our change in utility plant. So typically on your balance sheet, you just have that one line. And so this allows some more detailed information, similar to the notes that you would receive, again, through an audited financial statement. So breaking it down, so our distribution plant saw the most growth in 2025 with 11 million in additions. And then our transmission was the second biggest addition in 2025. Our general plant subtotal, that includes vehicles, power equipment, tools, and things like that. And then our headquarter plant is fairly self-explanatory additions to our different properties. And there's some different sections talking about our service interruptions, gives a snapshot of our employees, the total head count, hours worked, and how payroll was expensed versus capitalized. This next section, patronage capital, gives a summary of our retirements for the year. It also presents our cumulative retirements that LPEA has issued. So a little over almost 96 million we retired back to the membership. This line 6, total cash received, represents the total cash or retirement that we received from our G&T and then our lender, which is CFC. So as you had asked earlier this morning, if we received any G&T retirement in 2025, we did not. And so this full cash retirement was received from CFC in 2020. This next section gives a kind of deeper dive or a highlight into our sources of kilowatts purchased and total costs. And so it just breaks down.
Is that confidential information at this point? Or not? No?
So yeah, we did double check this for our 2025 Form 7. This is not. I am anticipating that we would likely need to redact a public version of Form 7 in 2026, given our new power supply arrangements. But this version we double checked and we can share publicly.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on this page, please? Under that renewable fuel type D, so for instance, Lemon Dam, I didn't realize we had generation there, but it has 5 potential. Does that mean potentially 5 megawatts? What does 5 potential represent?
No, but potential basically just means it's potential energy that can be turned into electricity. So in both cases, waste heat and hydro that's the label that they get, because like hydro is basically, if you remember from high school physics, right? Potential versus kinetic, it's potential energy.
And then on the tri-state one, it has 0 for renewable fuel type. I don't see where that comes in, because they do have renewable. Well, I'm not too sure what this is trying to tell me.
Well, this just gives you the general label for that source. You're absolutely right. Part of Tri-State's portfolio does include renewable sources, but it is a minority fraction, and so this is given the 0 label as per the guidance from CFC.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm kind of new to this form. So thanks.
So, that bottom line totals, that kilowatt purchase ties out to, the next section that I'll talk about, and then that total cost also ties out to our total cost of power that's presented on, that front page of our statement of operations.
One question I have here on line 4, community solar garden, there's a notation of 4 in parentheses. I would assume that's a footnote, but I couldn't find anything anywhere.
A total of 4 different community solar gardens.
Ah,
It's an
Grouping them
aggregation.
up, grouping them together versus listing them out individually.
I see. So this is the 4 community solar gardens, but if we have our own, wouldn't that make 5? Aren't there 4?
There, Tim, there's been some that have dropped,
Okay,
you know, in the mix too, so still 4 at this point.
all right. And that includes Sunnyside. So that power is a blend cost amongst all ones that are still operating. Is that correct?
Sunnyside is not being reported in that line for community solar gardens because we own Sunnyside. It's being
right.
reported under total kilowatts generated versus total kilowatts purchased. And so these are for community solar gardens that we receive energy.
Oh, this is a very good clarification here.
Yeah.
Doesn't include
Self-generated.
our community solar or the LPA owned one because we don't purchase that power. Is that what you're saying? And
Yes, correct.
this is all about purchases.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, this section right here is total kilowatts purchased. So we kind of have a net of that excess net metering. So that's
I see. So that's why that might answer the other question I had, which is it seemed like kilowatt hours purchased was different than the total of kilowatt hours used. Is that in another report that we got at the end of the year, right? So some of our kilowatt hours aren't purchased, therefore they're not on this chart. It's less than the total. Okay, thank you very much. This was the place I had the most questions. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, me too.
this next section just highlights our long-term debt, what our balance was at the end of the year in total interest and principal payments that were made. And this next section is where I was saying that the total kilowatts purchased in that previous form ties out to this line right here in total kilowatts purchased. But this this part our power requirement database is something that we're tracking on a monthly basis, but it reports our number of consumers, kilowatts sold, and revenue sold, broken out by the different classes. And so it totals everything at the bottom. Shows what our own kilowatt use was, and then our total kilowatts purchased. And then here on line 17 is where those total kilowatts from Sunnyside are being reported. So total kilowatts generated. It also summarizes our cost of power purchase in generation. This form does take the sum of both cost of power, the line cost of power plus transmission expense. So that was total at that moment.
So that line 17, is that essentially what we have generated with our own facilities? So that would be added to purchased for total usage. Okay, thank you.
This part asks energy efficiency programs. This is a data that Steve's group presents to me. And so I don't have a whole lot of insight on this report, Dan, do you?
Yeah, what is MMBTU?
Millions of British thermal units.
Oh. Okay. Millions of BTU savings. Okay.
And finally, this section just summarizes that investment section of our balance sheet and gives just further granularity into our different assets. So breaking out our G&T compared to other cooperative capital.
So this,
Yeah.
could I go back to the energy efficiency for just one moment, please? So this mixes BTU savings, millions, against dollars, right? It looks like. One is invested dollars, the other is savings, but I don't, there's not a connection here between what is the value of a million BTU savings, right? Is that?
You can
maybe
convert
we could take,
BTUs to kilowatt hours. If
pardon?
said you can convert BTUs to kilowatt hours, but the purpose of this is that the savings could have been electrification or fuel switching. So BTU is the standard energy measure amongst gas, electric, of various different sources as well. And this is primarily fed from our rebates.
Okay. Okay, so the amount vested is essentially rebate based. Sounds like.
And time, we put staff time goes in here as well.
Okay, so it's a fully loaded cost basis, it sounds like. I mean, it's hard for me to look at this and know whether this is a good story or what the story is, right? And I think there's probably a good story here about we invested and we got for our members a return in terms of fuel savings, I guess, that could be translated into a dollar return, an ROI. But I don't have any way to see it from this report. Does that show up in a KRTA somewhere? Do we know?
I'd have to look. I'm not sure if there's usually a KRT for just about everything, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's in there.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know. I mean, I think I don't want us to miss the opportunity here to say this is the result of those investments. And I think from a finance and audit committee perspective, that's something we would really like to know. There's this money invested, it's in a budget. What did we get back? And I can't translate it with MMBT savings. Sorry. This is finance, not engineering. So anything that can be done to help us understand that from a financial perspective would be really helpful, I think. There's probably a good story. And if not, maybe we should think about what's a better way to invest. I don't know.
Yeah, Tim, so we did, every budget cycle, we do take a fresh look at our rebate programs. If you'll remember from last fall, we did some changes from 25 to 26, and that was part of that discussion. I agree. This line one is a little hard to decipher because we had to change the units. But you'll see, I think, in the budget process, a more clear explanation of where we're planning investments and what we expect the returns to be. But we'll try to make that as easy as possible to digest for the board when we get to that stage of the budget discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that, I mean, it's probably work, but if somebody wants to send me a formula, I'll do it because I
Yep, I think you froze.
Who's Tim?
Yeah, we lost him.
The thing it looks like if you look at those totals, $20 million for 163 BTU savings is like what, $120 BTU, an MMBTU.
yeah, I don't want to do it on the fly. I'd rather have some real numbers if possible. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Anyway, whatever we can do in that regard. If we have to wait till the budget time, that's fine, but we're giving this information. I'd like us to find out what they use it for and understand a little better. And again, from a finance audit committee perspective, it's like money's being spent. What's the ROI on it?
Yeah.
All right, I beat that up, I think. Anyone else? Monica, sorry to stop you.
That's okay. I just have one last section in review. And again, this is the investment section. It breaks down and provides detail on the cooperatives investments that show kind of in the middle of your balance sheet. So breaks out on the G&T versus our other investments in other cooperatives. On our special funds, we have some different memberships and the Tri-State MITS deposit. Gives detail on our cash investments. And that breaks out on this customer accounts receivable is kind of our MR receivable section. That's the Form 7.
All right. I think I've seen this before, but it was a long time ago. So I really appreciate the review. I don't think there's any action.
Oh, we lost him again. That's correct. There is no action item. This is just a reformat of information that the committee and the board already has, but Form 7 is a nice way to summarize it and look at it all in one place.
Yeah, my connection froze. It's probably on my end. So I was just summarizing here that I appreciate your presenting this. I thought I saw it a number of years ago. I don't think there's any action required by the FAC on this. Is that correct, Chris and Monica?
Yeah, no action required, Tim. And yeah, this really is just a information the board and the committee already has. It's just in a different format, and I think the Form 7 allows you to see things in different categories in a summarized way that is pretty useful.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, there were some questions generated, and maybe there's some actions around that, but it was very helpful for me. Anyone else? Other questions, comments? If not, then we would need to have a motion to move into executive session to talk about, I think there was it on the financials, April financials, a review of a spreadsheet that Monica mentioned. So that would be added to the 2 items on the agenda: transmission asset discussion and update, and power supply update. So I'll just make that motion to go into executive session accordingly.
Second.
Okay, I've got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Welcome, Dusty. I didn't see you come in there till late. Okay, so everybody has their link, I hope, and we'll see you in executive session shortly. Thank you. Hello, this is Tim Wheeler, Chair of the Finance and Audit Committee. Concluding the meeting we have for May for La Pala Electric Association. And we were just coming back after an executive session. There is no action coming out of the executive session. So we're adjourning the meeting and thank you. See you next month. Thanks.
Yeah.